Welcome back. I'm your host, Susanna May O'Hagan, and today we are going to talk more about some Bewitched behind the scenes fun facts, if I can figure out where we left off. Some actors wore their own clothes. Another interesting fashion note is that some actors wore their own clothes in the sitcom, including Elizabeth Montgomery. Shannon Lear Land's Fashion History of Bewitched this to the series lacking a hefty wardrobe budget for its stars. Casey Rogers, who played Louis Tate, bought her own clothes. Louise, thank you. Tate brought her own clothes to set on a weekly basis. What makes this budget decision special is the fact that the character got to show off a little piece of the actor. A less-known spin-off ran for one season. Bewitched fans may have never spotted the series' short-lived sitcom Tabitha, which ran for one season from 1977 to 1978. The sitcom was named for the Stevens' daughter, who was also a witch. The series ages Tabitha up to her early 20s, and she is played by Lisa Hartman. Even though Erin Murphy played her on Bewitched, Tabitha's TV parents never guest starred on the show. Okay. 12 spooky, fun, unknown facts about the original Bewitched. Okay, we'll have to start here. In the mid-1960s, the first wave of fantasy shows featuring spooky families, which granted belly-boarding genies and nose-twitching witches, made their way onto our TV sets. On Bewitched, audiences watched as one grumpy husband reluctantly learned to accept his magical wife and all her quirks on a weekly basis. Darren and Samantha Stevens may not have always seen eye to eye about her witchy ways, especially when her family members stopped by to add to the chaos. But there was always a lot of love to be found in each whimsical episode. Keep reading. Okay. Elizabeth Montgomery played the role of Samantha, who married Darren Stevens, played originally by Dick York. Okay, we've talked about that like 50 times. With each passing year, a new generation of fans discovered the classic series. In 1977, a spin-off of the series Tabitha was created. Ever wonder if the cast were friends off screen? The story behind Darren recasting, or what a look back at the celebrity cameos you may have missed. Bewitched outran other fantasy shows of the era. There was a boost in popularity throughout the 1960s of otherworldly shows like Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, we could talk about that, The Addams Family, and The Munsters. Okay, I've watched all of these in the past couple of years, and they're really good. I love The Munsters more than some of the other ones. All of the shows premiered between 1964 and 1965, but The Addams and the Monsters only lasted 2 seasons, while Jeannie gave her final blink in 1970. Even with Darren switcheroo, the Stevens stayed on air until 72. The original Darren never wanted to leave. Well, I did that. 5 years before being cast in the series, Dick York suffered a massive back injury while filming the Came to Corden in 1959. He never fully recovered, but put on a brave face throughout the series. For 5 seasons that came to an end after problems with his back came to the surface and a dependence on painkillers forced him to leave the role. Samantha and Dora's names come from a biblical story. Seriously, I had no clue. The first book of Samuel, there's a story about Saul consulting with Witch of Endor to use her powers to connect him with the deceased Samuel. Obviously, Samuel became Samantha and Endor became Endora. Oh, Endor became Endora. The ladies often wore their own clothes. The series didn't have a huge budget for wardrobe, so many of the women simply brought in their own outfits to wear on screen. Allegedly, Samantha Montgomery frequently chose clothes from her own closet for Samantha's outfits. That's cute, because I liked her style. The color green played a role. You might not have noticed while watching, but the color green is all over this show. Whether it's the Stevens house carpet or Emerald HX antiques placed around the house, the shade appears in every episode of the show that aired in color. Montgomery also wore the color quite frequently. Sure, it might have been because she wanted to bring out her own beautiful green eyes, but the color also happens to be significant in the witchy folklore. Think Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz. I love that. I'm a huge Wicked person, so. Countless Halloween decorations and even the face paint kids often use while dressing up as the magical being. They never gave an on-air explanation for Darren's new look. That's true. It's funny because they call it nowadays when they do it the Darren switch. Thinking back on the magical show, you might have assumed they used their whimsical plot lines to come up with a creative reason for Darren suddenly looking so different. Instead, director and producer figured audiences would be able to separate the actor from the role and accept the new Mr. Stevens. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and ratings took a dip with the new Darren. Aunt Clara, I think, collected doorknobs in real life too. Really? That's so weird to me that she collected doorknobs. Fans of the show remember Aunt Clara as one of the clumsy, bumbling, but kind-hearted witches close to Samantha through the series. Her spells never really worked quite right, but you can't help but love her. That's apparently due to actress Marina Lauren bringing her own charm to the role, including her personal pendant for collecting decorative doorknobs. Samantha's alter ego got her own fan mail. Although Montgomery played both Samantha and Serena, her twin cousin, the role was credited to Pandora Spooks, a play on Pandora's Box. Fans of the quirky character were totally fooled and sent in letters to the studio addressed to the fake name. Mick Bradley made 2 cameos. Before becoming the eldest daughter with hair of gold, Marsha Brady made 2 cameos. Before becoming the eldest daughter with the hair of gold on the Brady Bunch, young Maureen McCormick appeared in 2 separate episodes of different characters. First in a fantasy sequel as Darren and Samantha's future children before the birth of Tabitha, then again as Endora under a spell that made her look like a child. The Stevens home is still standing. You won't find the house at 1164 Morning Glory Circle, but the Warner Brothers Ranch Studio. Unfortunately for fans, the ranch isn't open to the public for tours. Elizabeth Montgomery was pregnant while filming the first season. To hide her stomach during this period, Montgomery wore loose clothing so viewers weren't able to tell. Endora and Darren feud didn't translate to real life. Despite the character of Endora and Darren constantly being at odds with one another, in the show, Dick York and, I want to say Agatha, but I have no idea, Angus, Agnes, Moorhead had a wonderful friendship off screen. which left Moorhead extremely disappointed in his departure. 14 things you probably didn't know about Bewitched. Creator Solo was inspired by two movies. We already talked about that. He wanted Tammy Grimes to play the show's witch. Tammy Grimes, who won a Best Actor Tony Award in 1961 for the unsinkable Molly Brown, and was under contract to Screen Gems in 1964, and was the studio's first choice for the role of Can Cassa Cassandra, as the lead character was named at the time. Grimes was not a fan of the premise, asking why she wouldn't use her powers to stop wars to deal with Los Angeles traffic. The producers didn't agree, so she accepted a role in High Spirits on Broadway, and the witch character, now named Samantha, had to be recast. Richard Cena could have been Darren. Elizabeth Montgomery and her then husband, producer director William Asher, were looking for a television project they could work on together, and Harry Ankerman encouraged them to look at Stack's Bewitched pilot script that Asher thought the show had possibility, and Liz signed on to be Samantha. While Grimace was still scheduled to play the lead, a young actor named Richard was close to being signed on to play Darren Stevens. Richard took another job while the pilot was in search of a new Samantha, and interestingly enough, he would go on to play Tammy's twin brother on her short-lived show. Richard was the next actor offered the part of Darren, but he'd just spent several years on The Real McCoy, so he passed as well. Enter Dick York, who had an impressive list of acting credits in film, on Broadway, and on TV. His 1959 role in They Came to Corden changed his life forever. Dick York had to leave the show because of pain caused by an old injury. Elizabeth Montgomery was pregnant during early filming on the first season. It was Montgomery's idea to name her character's daughter Tabitha. I loved it because it was so old-fashioned, she said in 1967. I got it from one of my daughters of Edward Andrews, the actor. The two Andrews girls are named Tabitha and Abigail, but somehow or other her name came out Tabitha on the credit rolls, and that's the way it's been ever since. Honestly, I shudder every time I see it. It's like a squeaky piece of chalk scratching on my nerves. Alice Peast had terminal cancer when she took the part of the Stephen's nosy neighbor. Is that why she wasn't always there? Alice played the part of a nosy busybody so well that even today, the local neighborhood is referred to as Gladys Kravis. When Percy was 9, she fell from a playground swing and landed on her chin, stunning its growth. Her undershot jaw prevented her from landing any leading roles when she took up acting, but she could be counted on as a good comedic foil. For months prior to receiving a phone call from her agent telling her that William Asher wanted her for a role on his new TV show, P was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She had surgery, but the doctors informed her that her case was terminal. She told no one of her co-workers of her condition, and other than her being a little tired on the set now and then, no one suspected her of being ill. He passed away in March 1966 and was awarded a posthumous Outstanding Supporting Actress Emmy Award 2 months later. Sandra G took over the role of Gladys Kravis for the remaining of the series. I was wondering what happened to her. I was like, why did they change her all of a sudden? Because they were sick. Well, that explains a lot. Most of the supporting actors on the show wore their own clothes. York and Moore were close off screen. Marin Lore, who played Aunt Claire, collected doorknobs. Larry Tate's son on the show was named after actor David White's own son. On Christmas episodes was written by African American high schooler. Samantha's magic was made by stagehands. The theme song had lyrics. I think that's basically the same thing. Bewitched reached its 60th anniversary, which all fascinating facts about the sitcom. Samantha's twitching nose was not a separate effect but real. Elizabeth Montgomery fell pregnant while filming the first season, then twice again in the series. Montgomery played 2 characters in the show. Most of the supporting actors on the show wore their own clothes. The theme song originally had lyrics. Actress Moorhead came up with her character's name, Endora. She's been a big player in Hollywood before the show. One of the Christmas episodes was written by African-American high schooler, and in its cast were, I don't even want to say that because I'm not sure how to feel about that one, who played Aunt Claire, collected doorknobs. Alice played nosy neighbor and had cancer throughout her entire appearance in the show. Dick York had to leave the show. The pilot episode was inspired